All right, here we are. Interesting conversation right there as we get to celebrate our very own. But then equally, there's some mishap that have been noted in the society in regards to how men have dealt with their very own issues. And joining us this morning, Susan Kiragu is a marriage and family therapist. Thank you so much for your time. Susan is seated right next to me. And right next to Susan is Nora Mwagambo, who's a marriage advisor equally. And it looks like these issues to do with family, or these issues to do with relationships are so much so, of course, rampant at the level of marriage. And that's the reason why we think it's very important that we discuss. And because of the interest of time, I think we'll touch on the crucial issues. The fact that men are out here and they're not willing to speak. And even worse is that we do not take time as, the people who love them, as the people who are close to them, to figure out or to find out whether they're going through something. And in the event that sometimes we try and find out, we probably do not have so much of solutions in regards to the issues. So moving forward, we just let it loose, we assume, until, it hits that dead end. That's when we now start talking that, they had issues with their relationship, they used to complain, but here we are. We're talking about a whole different issue altogether. Yes. What do you make of this?
Thank you so much for that question. I'm liking the idea of the mental health. And I'm looking at it that before we get to the aspect of the element of our mind not being okay, the issue begins somewhere, either from childhood, as this man is growing up, as he's getting married, as he's going to his work, and the issue keep on piling and piling and piling without being addressed. Yeah. So by the time you're talking of mental health, and we're seeing what you're seeing today, has been a chain of events that have been happening in this man's life.
All right. A chain of events. Of course, we'll be delving deep in understanding, their growth, the factor of their origin, because then that's pretty much important.
Yes.
But coming to you, Nora, here we are, and we ask ourselves, family is where one is supposed to go and get so much peace, after a hectic day. Family relationship is where, you're supposed to enjoy life and, with the very same people that you love. But clearly also family are the very main reasons why we see men conducting all these heinous acts against their very own loved ones by the day, or even, deciding to commit suicide. Why is it that the space of family has turned out to be this ugly?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would love to say the men generally, apart from them being taught that they need to be this hard to be men, they are not given the reality of life. Like, they need to know that today you can get, tomorrow you can miss. Yeah. And when you fail to get, doesn't mean you now have to burst out and react or go overboard. They need to understand that if I fail to miss today, I have an opportunity tomorrow. Then there's the culture we have that men should not cry, they should not break down. Yeah. But as for me, I would say men are human beings. They even need to break down.
No, let me cut you short, of course, or maybe just try and ask this question in between. Because nowadays we're having the conversation changing. And I can tell you this for free. For years now, we've been talking of that factor that, men should be allowed to, of course, showcase their emotions. It's normal, it's natural and everything. And this is instilled in the brains of many. But why is it that we still have few of them in the society that sort of feel like they want to maintain that independence factor? And how then best can we deal with such, characters?
We can deal with such characters by helping them through advice. We can advise them. Those who have embraced the change that men do cry, they are changing, and their mindset is also changing. But for those who still feel like, I'm this man, they are not embracing the fact that they can cry, they need to be advised, they need to be talked to, they need to realize that in life, we still have some other chances. In these relationships, in these marriages, if it's not working with so-and-so, I can still have an opportunity with someone else, and it can still work. They need also to man up and know their position. You cannot enter into a relationship, say, and you want to act like everything is going on smoothly. You don't want to get the views of your partner. This makes it makes the partner feels like, so you are all-knowing, can I just stop everything from there? Then when it comes up that this other party decides to move on, you feel like you've been wasted all your life, and you break to the point that no one now can come
and
to your
reality
rescue.
is that sometimes indeed that feeling is very real, because then you realize that there could have been other things that you would have done at this particular point, but you dedicated your life into the, ensuring that you make the best of the two of you, but then it looks like it's not working. So then there's that feel that, okay, there's so much pressure, and maybe you need to, of course, recover the time that was lost. But that aside, she brings aboard the factor of the culture and how the society has perceived men to be, the strong ones, hence they should not focus on, the small nitty-gritty details that would get you to crying. Do you suppose then, Susan, that the culture in a way has been insensitive to the rights of men in particular?
Oh, yes. And indeed, especially when you're talking of the aspect of forgiveness, the culture has put it in a way like when you forgive, it's a sign of weakness.
Right.
But in reality, it's not a sign of weakness. So in the sense of the marriage, many things happen. Situation will come, mistake will happen. So this man who has been brought up in the aspect of forgiveness is an aspect of weakness. Right. So he has no idea, how do I forgive? How do I move on? So he keep on piling and piling issues and emotion, and he can be able to express himself. So given an opportunity that this man can be able to speak out, to address the issue, to seek forgiveness, and it's okay to seek forgiveness. Actually, when I seek forgiveness, it's more for my own sake,
right,
not for the person who have hurt me. It is me who heals, and I'm able to enjoy my life. Right. So these are some information that we need to teach our men, that they can make what we call informed decision. Right. Not as per the stereotyping of our culture or our society.
All right, then teaching them comes aboard with the question of growth right from the time they're born. They're sired, they're brought into the world, and they're some of these values are instilled within them. So when we talk about the developmental stages of a human being, and more so of a man for this particular factor, when they come into this particular family, I mean, do you suppose then they are introduced to the best of developmental stages and crafted in the best way, such that they grow up knowing their space in the community, knowing how best they can deal with their issues as it stands?
Okay, as for me, I would think it's good the same way the women are taken through their lifespan, let me say, their stages of life, their growth, their puberty level.
Do you suppose so much is given to the women as opposed to the men?
Yes, the men, okay, as for me, I think the men, it's now an endangered species.
Oh, really, yeah?
They're not like taught, you see, at this time, you are supposed to behave like this, when you are mature at this time, at this level of life. The fathers now and the grandfathers, they are not having much time with their sons and grandchildren like the women do. That's why the women know at this time of life I need to be this. When I become a mother, I need to be this. But for the men, it's a little bit complicated. It's like the notion is you will know by yourself. You're a man, like you will have to catch up. So as for me, I think we need to have some way of teaching our sons and our children that aspect of life, of how they need to grow. If you become a man, how ought you to be? Right. If you become a father, if you become a husband, it begins with when you become a husband, how ought you to be? Then finally from the husband, how do you do, or what do you do when you become a father? Right. All that will help at least to come up with a generation or a cluster of men who can take care of the society at large.
All right, okay. Coming to you, Susan, still on the same note, yes. And like she puts it, there's so much energy that has been pushed towards, making the best of the girl child, and we tend to ignore the boy child. Probably it's because the society back then had focused much on the well-being of the boy child, and now then we realize that, oh, there's something that we were doing amiss. And coming to this point, equally, there's that argument on ground that with the pressures of life, of motherhood, of being a woman, it looks like, there's much more on our plate in comparison to what the men have in store. Do you suppose then that, of course, men in this case would be told not to have an excuse of committing all these heinous acts in the name of so much pressures of life? Because then nowadays women step into the house, of course they equally help in their very own capacity, they fed for the family in their very own capacity. So we are moving from that societal aspect of leaving everything for the man to vent for or to take care of.
Yeah, definitely there's no excuse for a man to commit a heinous crime. We are living at an era, there's so much knowledge and information at our disposal. So every man can consult a counselor or a mental health professional. And especially in counseling, we teach work-life balance. Yes, there are so many responsibilities on your shoulder. As a man, as a father, as a professional, correct. All of them. Leadership in your mini organization, correct. Now, when you engage a professional, they come on board and they teach you as a man, equally to a woman, how do I handle all these life responsibilities are lying on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And when I know how to deal with it, then my burden becomes easier.
Right.
I know how to navigate through. Yes.
The troubles will get you to that level where you're not stable, mentally. And I would love to know at what point then does the involvement of mental health trigger, these heinous acts or these, of course, events that we are talking about today in the life of a man. And do you suppose then we have stigmatized that to that level whereby men do not want to come out and speak about the issues they're going through?
I think when they pile up the situation, the complicated situations, that's when now it triggers the heinous act that they have.
Right.
I would say you had a past, for example, with so-and-so. It ended up not well. Then you had another one. You piled up. You never let go of that. So by the time you are having your 6th, 9th relationship and it breaks, now you feel like, no, this should not happen to me. At that time, you can't contain your anger. You can't contain the bitterness because you've been piling up a lot. So you reach a point like, I can do anything now.
Right.
If I can't get her, no one else can get her. If I can't be with her, she has spoiled my mood. She has wasted my time, my energy, my finances and resources. So it's because of the pile up. If this person had shared early enough, let's say in the first experience, maybe that would have healed by the time he's in a third relationship.
Okay.
So by then, if this happens, he also gets some energy like, okay, this will not end here. I still have another chance. Then it heals also. But the fact that they are keeping it to themselves every time, it builds up, and the pressure now, it gets to a point you can't contain the pressure. You just have to break.
All right.
Yeah.
Where the rain started beating us, where we are coming from is crucial when we're talking about this. And then we look at, of course, the factor, the origin, the people that these men, were able to grow with, the people that they met in their lives that got them to that point where they are, the kind of mentors and advisors they had at that particular time. Do you suppose then that we overlook all these crucial stages and then we come to that level where, now this person is 35, he's grown up, and that's when now we start judging or looking at their issues at that particular point, forgetting where they all come from?
Actually, it's not about overlooking. I cannot give you what I don't have.
Yeah.
Most of us, we're growing from families where we have parental challenges. We don't have a school that teaches people or parents on how to parent. So in our parenting, we have a lot of gaps. So as these men are growing up in those families, there are gaps. And you can tell there's a lot of faulty learning. For example, if a man grows up in a family whereby the father settles the difference with the mother through beating, so the man gets to learn.
It looks like
The way to settle
okay
the
to do that,
differences
yes.
is to go beating. So this is what I'm calling faulty learning. And he didn't get the chance to know that actually this is faulty learning. So along the way, due to our dysfunctional families, we learn a lot of the negative impact of faulty learning. So, and this man now at 35 or at 30 or 28, when he gets married, the society expects this man now to function normally,
Right.
as if nothing has happened. So we need to start from back in our grassroots, and we address those issues. We teach parents how to parent, and we address our own issues right from childhood.
Okay.
As we grow up in our families, right into our school, into the churches and all the organizations that we attended, because this is where we picked all these behaviors.
All right, interesting now, because we have like about 3 minutes or so to wind up. It's important then we look at ourselves as a society. Do you suppose that there's enough that is being put aboard in terms of sensitization, in terms of speaking to the society, in terms of ensuring that there's that, of course, generational or transitional, of course, classes that people go through, so that we would help them, or we will help them avoid some of the occurrences of life that would not be very good. And maybe as a country, the role of the government in regards to addressing these issues? Because when you look at some of these cases, most of these people will tell you, of course, some are from the forces, some are from, you know, civil jobs, of course, in the country. And you ask yourself, what is it that the government then is doing at large and the society at large towards ensuring that we bridge the gaps that are there, we seal the loopholes that are there, so we do not have such cases cropping up or rising by the day?
Okay, I would think that it would be better if the government would come up with some, like, sort of forums for those who are in the professionals, different professionals of the government, come up with different forums where they can maybe advise the different qualified personnel with the, apart from just being work issues, there are other issues that are hitting them that makes them not perform. So things like if they can have a side professionals who can do counseling to these people, at least they would open up and it will lower down the pressures. That's one. Two, we also need men who can come up, or women who have power who can come up. The same way people came up and empowered the girl child, they should now come up and empower the male child also, the boy child, because as it is, they are suffering a lot. Because if you think the best way is to kill someone, and you have been told that murder from your childhood is not the best thing, but you have decided to resolve to go to murder as a solution, that means you had reached your extreme limit. So even the society, if the grandfathers and grandmothers and the old people can sit down their grandchildren, like during circumcision, they normally tell their children, you are now a man. You have been circumcised, you have grown. The same way, they should sit them down at that time and tell them, now you should behave like 1, 2, 1, 2. So if someone decides to be extravagant and go the wrong way, at least they have an idea. They are told you are supposed to do this, even though they are not going that same way.
Thank you so much, Nora. And of course, lastly on you, Susan, safe space from, of course, the extremes of life, like she rightfully puts it. You know, when you get to that extreme, that's when you'd conduct all these acts that are not considered to be well. So how do we brace ourselves as a society to create that safe space so that we would avoid lots of these cases that crop up?
Thank you. There are always a telltale signs that all is not well. Especially when you see a man who used to be very jovial, okay, now he has turned to be very irritable, full of anger, talking of rage, revenge. So all is not well. So as a society, because we live with these people, they are within us. What action are we taking? It's the high time as a society we embrace mental health and counseling. Some of these cases can be dealt with through counseling, and others can be dealt through mental health. Other than just sitting back and watching and waiting, we take action. We can help these men. Probably in their situation, they have no idea that they can reach help somewhere. So we can work with them and we can guide them to the right direction, that they can be able to seek somebody who can be able to help them.
All right. Thank you so much. It was great having you. That is Susan Kiragu, marriage and family therapist, and lastly, Nora Mwagambo, marriage advisor. Thank you so much for the great advice that we've received this morning. And of course, back to you, the viewer, thank you so much for your feedback. Not to go without reminding you to stay woke. While counseling services might look as though they are expensive, sometimes it is worth, because they would get you saving yourself so much so of the tragedies of life. So take advantage of such, like the counselors would rightfully put it, because then it's pretty much necessary. Sometimes you might think you can handle it by yourself, but true to it, you certainly need extra help or external help. Thank you so much. It was great having you once again right from the start of the show up until now. My name is Linda Alela. Of course, I was doing this alongside my co-host Ayub Sheikh Abdi Hadri. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.